finally entered the year 2023. We thank the Almighty that we've witnessed this year, and hopefully the New Year resolution that we've set for ourselves would materialize. But also, if you've shared or set New Year resolution for last year and you were not able to achieve that, hopefully this year we would put in more effort to make sure that whatever resolution we've set for ourselves is achieved. This is Generation Next, and I am your presenter, Sirachor. I'm always thrilled to be sitting here, knowing that I've got my beautiful audience sitting also and watching the one-on-one exclusive. Generation Next, it's a youth movement platform geared towards inspiring, motivating, and directing young people's participation towards responsibilities in the developing society. We are working to raise awareness on issues and challenges that the youth are faced with in order to effect a positive change. That is why every fortnight Saturday, we're here bringing you young people that matters, bringing you people we think are shaping our society, bringing you people we think if we listen to them, if we support them, then we equally would be supported, but equally we would achieve some of the things that we've set for ourselves. It is against this background that we're always here. And today, I'm happy that I've got a young person who is vibrant, a young person, a Brit young person who is doing remarkably well in this country. And I'm sure if you are current, you would know who I am talking about by the time I say his name. You will be thrilled to see him on the screen. And of course, whenever I watch him do present news, I'm like, that is our British, because his accent is so good that I love it so much. Of course, it's no other person than Mr. Momodou Gajaga. Gajaga is a reporter, sports anchor, and a news presenter at QTV Gambia. He has over a decade of experience in journalism, working in various media institutions, including print, radio, online, and TV. He is an award-winning journalist who scoped the Best Sports Reporter of the Year category in 2019 Gambia Press Union National Journalism Award. Prior to his outstanding achievements, Mr. Gajaga acquired his high school certificate from St. Augustine Senior Secondary School. He then proceeded to get an advanced diploma in IT skills, English language proficiency from the Gambia Computing and Business Institution. That is so beautiful, having read Momodou Gajaga's profile. Gajaga, it's a pleasure to finally have you on the one-on-one exclusive.
More than a pleasure, man. This is beautiful. I can't wait for it to start, man. I feel at home. I feel awesome to be here.
MashaAllah. We feel great. We feel honored to actually have you on the one-on-one exclusive. And I'm sure if you've been following the one-on-one exclusive, the main motive, like I said, is to bring in young people who are changing the narrative, is to bring in young people who knows that we have a future to build. And of course, in doing so, what do we try to achieve is to try to find out your background from where you've started. That is to say, your humble beginnings, because who you are now, it's what many would be able to resonate with. It's what many would know. But to every person who is doing remarkably well has a story. So basically, we would want to know your story. Is there any memories you can remember from your childhood? Take us through.
Well, fantastic. I can't be more thrilled than to start from my childhood. Yes, Momodou Gajaga, my name, as you earlier on mentioned. I am 35 years, and you know, my background is was born in the village of Kercherno, Opanyumi district. I live in Brikama since 1997. So I would say if Brikama is a country, by now they would grant me the passport of Brikama. So I would have been a citizen of Brikama by now. So that aside, as a child growing up, I was the normal child who would be stubborn sometimes going to school. And sometimes I would even give my, I would say my shoes to my schoolmates or my classmates, and then I would come home barefooted. And then my dad would flog me, that sort of thing. So I started off that way. And then from school, and I would also go to Quranic school to learn about the Deen, the Islam. And then from there, I would say at home, I'll read my books, I'll do my studies, I will do my assignments, household chores. My mother, like I'm the firstborn, so you would become the Fatumata and the Binta, as traditionally we all know, when you're the firstborn, and then it takes a lot of time before my mother had a female child. So in between about 15 years or so. So I could cook. I could go to the market and do the nduga, the normal nduga that every female child will do at home. And I can cook as well. Very, very cook. I used to be. I don't know if I've now forgotten my cooking skills. So I would say I come from a very humble background. Basically, my parents are poor and we live on paycheck to paycheck as ordinary Gambian would do. And then, school, and then from high school, also like you introduced there, I did some IT courses. Initially, my main focus was to travel, just like everyone is desperate, this elusive thinking, and this lust for, okay, I'll go to Europe and then make a lot of money, come back home, build a mansion and drive flashy cars and all of that. So that used to be in my head. I would say even when I was going to high school, it has really somehow affected my performance in terms of academia and things like that. So, but I picked up. I had a passion for journalism. I don't know if I am going ahead. Maybe you would come with that question. But for childhood, I will stop here for now.
Wow, isn't that beautiful? I guess the part that struck me, it's the fact that you've mentioned that you had to do the house chores. Of course, being the Fatumata at the time, we know that in this society that we are in, hardly do you see men. I'm not saying it's not happening because you are the exception, but hardly do you see men when it comes to domestic chores that, of course, women would do. Even to rinse the plate, they tell you it's the job of a woman. So how does that make you feel? Looking at the fact that you were doing what many would presume to be a woman's job, how does that make you feel?
I think I felt great because the kind of background that I come from, I think I should be helping my parents at the time, knowing that maybe if my mother had the person who is next to me was a female child, it would be completely different story. Maybe I would also rely on the fact that, oh no, you are the female child. You should be the one who would be doing those kind of works, and they're not meant for men. But obviously, I had to do my bit, and I know how my mother really suffered and my father at the time. So basically, I would have to help in, and I think I really cherished every bit of it, and I still feel good about being able to do all of those stuff, and it had helped me currently because being married and then having two kids, I will take care of my kids when my wife is cooking, and then sometimes I'll help her in the cooking as well. So and even launder.
I hope you still remember the skills because I think you mentioned that you don't even know if you still remember them. Well, I think it's wise now that you're married to actually be helping out, perhaps on a day that you've not gone to work. It will be appropriate, and I hope you're doing that. I'm happy if you're doing that.
Most definitely, I'm doing that.
Okay, so let's still get to your childhood days. Of course, yes, you've been to school. You've mentioned that. Let's know how you were back in school days. Were you the type that was timid, that was more of an introvert back in school days? If not, take us through how it was during your school days in school.
Well, I would say I used to be one of the smartest in academia. School at the time, let's say primary school, Brikama Primary School. Initially, it was Sukutu Primary School between 1995 and 97, grade 1 and grade 2. And then myself and my family, we moved to Brikama. That's where we're residents since then. And then did my grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6 at Brikama Primary School. In 2001, we were the last batch to do the common entrance. It used to be an examination for the sixth graders in the Gambia. Those who would remember, well, of course, if you're not born in the 2000s, if you're born in the 2000s, you wouldn't remember that. But if you're born in the, let's say, early 90s, late 80s, like myself, I was born in 87. So you would definitely remember a thing like that. So I would say from there, then went to Brikama Upper Basic School, formerly known as Alpha Khan, because the principal there used to be very strict. In fact, the school is more popularly known by his name rather than the school's name itself. So it was called Alpha Khan. So I went in there, I would say steadily I progressed and then went to St. Augustine's and then from St. Augustine's. But I used to be very digger papa, the fight in school, that little thing. I don't know if you still remember this. We used to write letters like when you fall in for a girl and then you would put the letter in the girl's back. Because I'm a fit down. My taste time so you know what.
So,
So I did all of that.
okay. So were there any moment when you saw a chepe and you, like, maybe your friends could have persuaded you? Were there any moment that you saw a chepe, but because I'm not fit chepe because you've mentioned that they get bopa, meaning you were doing other things. So
Yeah.
how was it then? Like at the moment where you've seen someone you like, how then would you respond? That is, if you respond at all.
I would tell you this. My boys really tried to push me. I'll say, no, man, I'm fit, I'm fit to taste and all of that. So what they would do, they will tell me everything that I need to tell the chepe. I once did it. My first one, it was a bad experience. She would be like, okay, but me, I thought you were my brother. I never thought you would express something like this to me. You know what I responded? Instead of, pursuing more, I told her, I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. So I still remember that.
Wow, amazing. That would have been really nice of me to actually witness that. I would have been happy to be narrating it. But like,
I know.
yeah, so in terms of your extracurricular activities, how active were you?
Very active. In fact, that's the reason why I'm a sports journalist. I've been to go play football, whenever there are other activities like athletics in school, the inter-house, I will always participate. I'm not a good runner, I'm not a good footballer. I just do it for fun, but I always participate in some shape or form. Yeah, when it comes to contributions, also coordinating class activities and things like that. I've also been class captain or class prefect, if you like, a few times.
Okay. That's really interesting. So progressing, now that you are into journalism, but also your focus, not mainly, but your focus partially also on the sports journalism. So how did it come about? Is it journalism? Has it been something that you wanted doing, or was there any moment that you thought of doing something else and then perhaps later on you realized that you're perhaps good or passionate in journalism? Was there any moments like that?
No way. It's been journalism from day one when I was going to school. And how it started is the BBC World Service that I listened to. A habit, I would say, or a hobby that I cherished from my father, who used to listen to BBC Focus on Africa. And this started way back in 1994. I
Oh.
barely went to school. So I would like ask my father, what are they talking about? He would have his small transistor radio set close to his ears and then be listening. I was like, what are these people talking about? He said, yeah, they do news and current affairs about Africa, what is happening in Liberia. Remember then the civil war in Liberia, Sierra Leone. So I'm more of a curious person at the time. I'm like, okay, what are these people doing? I think I'm interested in this. Hopefully one day I'll have this opportunity to be able to do this. And that inspiration continues to a point. I would say by the time I was going to high school, I've been invited to some radio programs. I have to thank Bakari Mane, commonly known as Big Sam, Become Community Radio. He's the manager there, and he gave me the first opportunity to be on the microphone and express myself. It's been a very difficult one. I remember when speaking on the mic, then people will call on the radio and say, this Gajaga, he has a very nice voice, but he speaks very slowly. Can you please raise your voice a little bit? Oh, yeah, tough days, man. Hard days when I started, really. I could remember also when I was given the first script, and it was a story about sports in the Gambia Sports Division, printed already, giving to me to do the voice on radio. Oh my God, I was shaking, I was trembling. I almost fall down dead. And I'm like, okay, hundreds of thousands of people are listening to me. And then how about if I make a mistake here? Oh, I didn't flow nicely and all of that. So I've been thinking about that. It was a difficult one. So the journalism thing has been part of me. And I think it's because of passion, dedication, and that resilience to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. Despite the challenges, I want to be a journalist, and today I'm a journalist.
Of course, it has proved dividend, but also it's important because you've mentioned having spoken on the radio station firstly, where your voice was really slow that people had to call in to actually comment. But then aside from that, was that the only platform or was that the first platform in which you spoke publicly?
Not at all.
Take us through the first platform and how the journey was for you.
Yes, I can remember. I've been into this football thing for the longest of time. I could remember being beaten by my father because of going to football matches and things like that. I cannot play football, but I would go there, you know, hold their boots for them, their bats and their belongings, just for me to get entrance into the field, because I wouldn't even be able to afford the dalasi that you pay for a ticket to watch a match at the time. This like 1994, 95, 96, 97. Yeah, back then, some 25, 26, 27 years ago. So it was difficult. I would have to say when I first been on radio, this was in 2008, and then being given the microphone to speak, it was difficult. And then the first radio station, of course, it's become a community radio. FMB is the most common name that it is known for. And then later on, Yirwa FM. Yirwa FM, which is now Hilltop Radio, used to be in Brikama then, also being there, joining the sports panels and talking about sports. So I would chip in one or two words and then I'll keep it, because I would say, okay, I don't know much. So let me just keep on my side and let me just say a little and then keep quiet. So they will engage me. So little by little, I grew up. And then from Yirwa FM, I have to also thank Momodou Bojang, the CEO or the founder or the proprietor of Home Digital FM, commonly known to many as Mimbe Kering radio station in Beckham currently. From there, I also been to many platforms. Radio Gambia, I've been invited to their sports program. Charanga FM, I can never forget. I've been there as well previously. So all these radio stations is about sports, is about football, talking about Gambian sports. I'm so passionate about it. And reporting on matches. Sometimes it is through phone call. And Capital FM, I have to say. Also, the radio station in Bakau, I cannot forget about this radio station. But hopefully, I would in Hot FM, yes. Hot FM also has been a radio station I've been to. And so basically, when it comes to the broadcast media, radio, these have been the few radio stations that I've been to before.
Fantastic. That's really beautiful. Speaking of radio stations, that has brought back to, of course, memory lanes.
Yes.
When you used to be at Afro Radio, I remember.
Yeah,
I'm going too fast.
Obviously,
I'm going too fast. But yeah, that has gone to show the experience you've acquired working in the radio station. But now, what I want to look at specifically is the fact that having been your first and having spoken, and the fact that you tremble, because oftentimes we are challenged when it comes to public speaking. Most young people would perhaps love to do so, or they believe they've got what it takes to actually speak for people to hear. But because being there first, they're always challenged when it comes to this fear that they have inside them. So how you tangle your fear, it's what I want us to at least share for those young people that perhaps are scared to speak out.
I think for me, the media, especially broadcast media, have really helped me a lot to be able to deal with that that fear that you're talking about, standing in front of the public and giving a speech or, speaking your mind. Initially, I used to have big trouble with it. I remember even in class, because it's not something that has been part of me. I've been a shy person, a shy type. Some 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have this interview. I would say, no, I have no comment. I have no nothing, I'm not gonna say anything. Even in meetings when they're held, I would say, oh, okay, whatever that you agree, I am fine with it. So I wouldn't give my opinion and things like that. So I think really journalism helped, and people that I get close to, and also this practice of, you know what, I think I can do it. I think I'll be able to do it. So for the first time that I did it, I said, you know what? I didn't die. nothing happened to me. So I'm going to do it. I'll do it again and again and again. And here I am today publicly. I can speak my mind. I can give to talk about things that I know. And basically, I think this is something many young people who are out there, you think, oh, I am very shy. With time, that shyness is going to go away. All that you need is a platform, and then you go there and do it. Even if people laugh at you for the first time, you will overcome it.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Gajaga, for sharing that part, because it's always important that you believe. You know, we are our biggest challenge. You are your biggest challenge. Until you believe that yes, I can do it, then you'll be able to do it. You know, sometimes you might say that yes, I am feeling nervous. I'm not sure I can do it. Already you're derailing yourself into doing whatever it is that you may have wished to do. But until you try it, the nervousness may never go, but until you try it, in the process is when the nervousness will begin to disappear. But if you see it and not do it, Gajaga has said it, he has tried it and he didn't die. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gajaga. Again, you may continue with your with the journalism part. How has it been for you in Gambia? How would you describe journalism has been in Gambia, or how is it in Gambia? How do you see journalism in Gambia?
Well, it's difficult because journalism seemed to be a no-go area in the past 22 years, if you know what I'm talking about, in the Jammeh era, because many people think, you know, especially him and his regime, his opinion about journalists, that journalists are the one who would lie about issues, they will exaggerate, they in fact can cause conflict. That's his opinion about journalism. So that made a lot of people feared, but there are some who stood their ground. They were writing about issues that are happening in the country and basically keeping government in check, which is something that all dictators wouldn't want, because that would expose them. It would make the citizens, you know, say, you know what, I don't think things are going right. So that might derail their chances in terms of votes and things like that. So basically, that's the job of journalists. So at that time, it's a very difficult one. I would say, without looking back, to say that is one of the reasons that I got into sports journalism. You know, I remember when we were at the Standard newspaper, Siri Pojang used to send me to go cover anything that is related to politics. I'll say, no, you know what, I'm a sports journalist. That's for the political reporters and things like that. But you know, that Jammeh fear thing had been in, and you're a journalist, and then you go on to report about certain things, especially which are considered sensitive or certain state secrets, you could be in trouble for it. Like we've seen some journalists who've been in trouble. It's a difficult one, I would say, in terms of motivation, pay at the time. Um, I would say sometimes when you're giving your pay, you think, oh, this is a joke. Maybe you're just giving some small allowance. I would say, wouldn't say it's kind of a salary, but I would see it as a stepping stone, as a challenge. Um, Whatever that you do in your early days, you would obviously have to struggle, especially if you get into it through the rocky road. And that is, as a rookie, you're training, you're trying to gather more experience. Obviously, you will take everything. Maybe today, if somebody wants to pay me that little, I'll say, oh, hang on, man, I think I am worth more than what you want to pay me. But back then, I'm just getting into newly into the job, so I would take everything. I'm passionate about the job. I need more experience. So I think it's been a very difficult one, and it's still difficult um, as for many people. It might be a little better for me, but so many Gambian journalists are facing challenges in terms of exploitation, in terms of a difficult working environment, how they're being censored and things like that.
Okay, since you've came up with the challenges bit, I think it's important that you elaborated on that. On this note, what then would you advise any young person who perhaps maybe face or facing challenges in their lives at this stage? What advice, what best advice from your experience could you share?
Never relent, stay on your lane, be dedicated, be passionate. Whatever that you want to do, is believe in it and continue doing it until when you get your goals. Never quit. Quitters will never make it. Quitters will never get it. But if you persisted, that persistence would get you to the promised land.
That's really great, and that's a great advice. I'm sure any young person who is watching would adhere to this advice and forge ahead. Remember, when you have a purpose, regardless of what the challenges are, as Gajaga said, you will keep on going. So, Gajaga, on that note also, of course, we understand that sometimes we may have one or two persons. You've mentioned the sport journalist that inspired you. Of course, having seen your dad holding the transistor close to him. Apart from that, what else would you say, particularly here in Gambia, or who else would you say also contributed, apart from those ones that you've mentioned, of course, because you've been to those radio stations and they helped you. Apart from that, were there any moments or were there anybody that also inspired you, that kept you going?
Yes, that's my very close friend, my brother, and almost like my everything, Aliu Fall. Aliu Fall is somebody who has really helped shape my career. At one moment of a time, I faced difficulties, and I would say this would be around 2009. I even almost nearly quit, in as much as I am persistent and all of that. But he said to me, you know what, you've come a long way. If you quit, that's going to be like a whole disaster for you. What I see is be persistent, continue despite the difficult terrain. I will guide you along the way. He has really contributed a lot to me, my making today. Peter Gomez, the proprietor of West Coast Radio, has been somebody who has really inspired me. You can talk about a whole lot of them. Lamin Cham, Standard Newspaper, the editor, Sirif Bojang, the proprietor of Standard Newspaper, so many other people. I think there are a lot more that I can name. The list is long, but these are some of the few people that I would say has really inspired me and have got me to this point.
That's really beautiful. Having heard you speak about or talk about all these people, of course, I personally, I remember back then, I don't know why I'm bringing me into your conversation, but yeah, when I approached you guys, then you were at Afro Radio, and Cham was there. Cham also guided me, and I would love to thank him as well. Actually, Bojang equally, and Musa Sise as well. I cannot go
Musa
without
Sise, I have
mentioning
to
him.
say, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Musa
right,
too at Africa Radio gave me the
right,
platform, yeah, to
right.
come express myself. So
Right, right. So it's important that you've mentioned these people. That has gone to show that it's also important that you have people you look up to, because at the point where you even go to a distance where you feel like giving up, but then you have some of these people that will motivate you. So there you go. You've mentioned some of the people that has kept you going, which is fantastic. Now another point I want to bring across is education into who you have become. Of course, it has helped to shape who you have become. Doing journalism, education has a lot to play. But would you say that is it? Education, it has to be education for you to actually acquire whatever it is you want to acquire in life?
no, I wouldn't say it is all, but it's the first. It's the foundation. It's the pillar. We're here because of education. It's because we're schooled. That's why we're talking about the things that we are talking about it, and how we're expressing ourselves. Basically, in journalism, many would argue whether you need a degree or whether you need a PhD or you need a master's in communications or journalism per se. That's an argument for another day. But education is important in everything, and that education, because journalists are people who a lot of society would look up to. They are the ones who would educate, inform, and perhaps in a way entertain the masses. But in that educating and informing, you have to be educated first before you educate another person. So let nobody fool anybody about that. Education comes first. It's really important. But aside from the education, I think what you need also is the practicality aspect of it. I would say for most of the things that I've learned today in journalism has been in-house learning from the experience of other people. I've attended some courses, journalism courses, which are short courses and things like that. I would still want to do a journalism degree in the future. And I would still want to, if in to go as far as having a master's in journalism or communications. Yeah, obviously, that's my ambition. But I would say most of the things that I've learned is through the experience of other people, because I watch and listen and read about the best people in the business.
Fantastic. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, another part I may want to touch, it's the part that has to do with our surroundings, because oftentimes I do hear people say that the environment that you grow up in helps to shape who you become in the future. How would you, at this point, describe your environment? The environment that you grew up in, how would you describe it?
Well, this would be one of the most difficult questions I've ever been asked, or maybe perhaps the first time somebody asked me this kind of question. Well, I would say I was raised up in a normal, humble background community. Okay, my society has really contributed positively to what I've become. When I newly started journalism, and that radio listening bit of it, I've also been doing it. Oh, okay, you always listen to news, and then people will come to me. What happened today? Is tomorrow a public holiday? Because you are the one who listens to news. We are not sure if tomorrow is a public holiday, and I will inform them about it. And when it comes to the football bit of it, also, I always like know the updates, the scores of the teams that played, and things like that. So I would share. So I would say my surrounding has really helped people. Instead of discouraging me, they've really encouraged me. I would have to say, and I have to return gratitude to them. My neighbors, the people that I deal with, for the most part. Yeah, you have few who would say, "Oh, you know what? You're into this job, you're not being paid well, and things like that. Maybe you need to quit. Go look for something else, and maybe it's much better than you're always going to radio and coming back home at the end of the month. There is nothing to show for it in terms of your financial motivation and things like that. So, but I would say my surrounding really helped.
Fantastic. I'm happy. Thank you so much. Now, tell us, what are your hobbies? What do you like doing? What do you enjoy doing?
They are,
Apart from sport, from football and other parts of sport, what else?
oh my God, I have a very boring life. Apart from sports and football, maybe picnic, yeah,
Do
going
you?
out to the beach and enjoying
Okay.
myself. And yeah. I also like music. I cannot dance, unfortunately. All I do is jumping around, shaking my legs, but my what I would be doing and actually what the beat of the music is doing is completely different. So that's why the dancing bit of it, I've completely stay off it. I don't dance, except maybe if I am really, really happy and things like that. So if you hear the music, I will shake my body a little bit. So I would say picnic is my favorite. That's one of my biggest hobbies. I can list, and hunting. Even today, when I have like dogs and I have other people who would join me to go into the bush and go hunt for bush meat, I will still do it today with all my personality on television. And in fact, I'm planning to do a short documentary about that, how it used to be in my childhood. So I go to the bush with some dogs, we go after rabbits, we go after what do you call it, rats, brimo, and my God, that's something also that I love.
Wow. Well, I'm not sure I've ever tried hunting. I know I've seen a couple of animals you could
Mm,
hunt, but I'm the
yeah.
scary bit, so I wouldn't dare
Mm,
do that. Good to
yeah.
know that you love hunting. Now at this point, I'm second to ask. As a journalist, you've mentioned that you need to educate yourself first before you're able to educate anybody. But generation next, you realize that our focus is not only limited on education. Well, it's important. You need to educate yourself, but going or bringing it to our level, our society, the society here in Gambia, where we're grown up or where we grew up in, you realize that we have some youth that perhaps are not fortunate or did not take the opportunity when it was presented to them. And now they happen to have no whatsoever formal education, but perhaps there are other things I'm sure they could or you could acquire. What advice do you have to offer at this point to those young people?
What I would say is you should have a life skill, whether it's through academia. Some of the few people who are fortunate to be well schooled and get their degrees and having good jobs. They're traveling around the world. Yeah, that's the thing. If you don't fall into that category, you shouldn't be discouraged. I think there are other things that you can do. You can do entrepreneurship, business, and you can also get into skills. You learn a certain skill and make sure when you learn that skill, learn it almost close to perfection. That be very good at it. Be outstanding, be unique, because that's the only way you can sell your skill to the outside world. So I think basically young people have a lot of options. If this doesn't work, that is, you want to be educated, you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, and then all of a sudden, for one reason or the other, it didn't happen the way you wanted, you still have something to fall back on, especially when it comes to skills. Skills, you will never regret. So I would advise them to have a career path. Either you do a skills work or you get into entrepreneurship, and there are a lot more that you can do.
Thank you so much for that piece of advice. It's well adhered to, I would like to believe. Now, of course, in whatever one does, I'm sure we are constantly faced with problems, with obstacles. It even may go up to a point that you would want to give up. I don't know if that has ever happened. Of course, it does happen to me.
Yes.
So at a point or in a point that such thing does occur, what would keep you go? What would keep you persistent? What would keep you moving?
For me, it's belief. Because other people would share their stories with you. Like the people that I've mentioned that basically they've inspired me, they've really motivated me. They explain their stories to me, how they started. Lamin Chan, for example, the editor of the Standard newspaper, would say it's been very difficult when he newly got into journalism. If he explains his pay at the time, you'll be like laughing. How does one live on that? Peter Gomez has the same experience. You name all these people who have been into journalism. So I've always used that as a catalyst to say, you know what, they made it. I can also make it, despite all the challenges that I'm facing. I could remember going to cover matches at the Serekunda East, Serekunda West, and Banjul, dipping from my own pocket. And then I go to a radio station and report these matches. At the end of the day, I'm not giving a dime. Even to say $20 is use this for transport fare to go back to Brikama, So, but I always believe that, you know what? I think I can move mountains. Even then, it remains, oh, maybe a mad dream, but I always believe this dream will come through.
Oh, I am touched. That really hit me. It really did hit me. Thank you so much for sharing that. On that note, I would love to know, where do you see yourself? Where would you want to be at this point? Yes, you're here now. You're here. This is Gajaga. Now, where would you see yourself? Maybe
The
in the
highest,
okay, go on. Yeah, go
yes,
on.
the highest level of journalism, be among the best, not only in Gambia, in Africa, around the world. I think it is possible. I believe in it. I think if I continue with what I am doing, educating myself, learn more, interact more, and network more, it will, because gradually I am getting there. I've met some of the best people in the business of journalism. Um, those who specialize in sports journalism. I've interviewed some of the top people in sports. I met some of the top people in sports. Well, I can go on and on and on, but maybe that is like self-aggrandizement, or maybe trying to blow my own trumpet, but maybe basically. But sometimes they say, if you don't have anybody to blow your trumpet,
You
blow it
do it for
yourself.
you? Yeah, I agree. 100%. Without wasting much time, because I understand you have other engagements. So at this point, I would allow you to, perhaps there's something I've not asked that you may want to share. You're welcome. Go ahead. Tell us. On a final
Yes.
note.
Okay, Sarah, I want to share my story about the career progression that I got in journalism and some of the opportunities that it can create for everyone. Sarah, I never dreamed about getting in an aeroplane, traveling abroad, moving outside the Gambia. I've only been to Senegal before, and that's by road, not through the plane in 2008. That was my first travel outside the Gambia when I went there to cover a football game between Gambia and Senegal, the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. Journalism took me to at least 8 countries now
Wow.
over the last 5, 6 years. So, in fact, I used to be so obsessed with traveling, especially by air, to a point I said, you know what? Since I don't have the opportunity to board the plane, I am going to get some money, pay just to go to Dakar, buy a round trip ticket, go and come back, just for me to take pictures and say, you know what, I've also boarded a plane. But thanks to journalism, thanks to, yes, the help of others, but basically through my efforts as well, I was able to prove beyond reasonable doubt deserved to travel to explore part of the world. I've been to Ghana, I've been to Sierra Leone, I've been to um, Nigeria, I've been to, oh my God, I've been to Turkey, I've been to United Arab Emirates, Dubai to be precise. I've been to England, that's most recent. In late July to early August, I was in Birmingham to cover the Commonwealth Games. And about the Commonwealth Games, when I watched the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Manchester 2002 on black and white television, I had this feeling at the time, I had this dream, you know what? Oh, I wish one day I could be at this place. And I was at this opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games, Birmingham 2022 at the Alexandra Stadium on the 25th of July. I still couldn't believe it. Journalism has taken me to the world, and I'm still looking forward to traveling to the other parts of the world, the United States of America, for example, Paris, that's France, and other parts of the world.
Okay, I'm really thrilled that you're sharing this, and I can see the joy that's oozing out as you're saying this. Bravo, bravo to that. So now, hence you've brought this up. How has traveling to these countries, how have it helped? How has it done to you?
It has widened my horizon, my experience about life on the other side. Because you know when you're in Gambia, you see roads, you see airport, and then you see food and beaches. You think, oh, that's life. Gambia is a very beautiful place. No, of course, I'm not going to take that away from Gambia. Gambia is beautiful in many facets. You may bring it on the flip side, on the other side, and say, oh, okay, we are not great at this. We're struggling with this and all of that. But when you travel, it makes you explore the other side of the world. You see different people, you meet different people, you see life at another level, especially the countries that I've been to. Some of them are really well-developed nations, advanced nations in terms of infrastructure, technology, education, the sciences, and a whole lot of things that they've been able to get to the highest standards. So I think that has really widened my horizon. And I wish the Gambia to get to that level someday.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we will, having more young people collaborating, knowing that we have a future to build, knowing that we have a country to build. I'm sure we would get there. Thank you so much, Mr. Gajaga. You're going to kill me. Mr. Gajaga, for sharing that. I don't know why I'm missing your last name.
Don't worry, it's not only you, so many people.
I know.
I've met somebody a few days ago who called me, hey, Mr. Jagana.
You need to take your time when you're saying your last name. So it's a pleasure that we have you on Generation Next. Thank you so much for sharing that part of you. And the most important part, the most important bit where you talked about those people that you look up to haven't shared their story that kept you going. So this has gone to show that this is why Generation Next we are up, because we believe every single person that you hear today has a story. And when they share their story, then you know that you're just beginning. So thank you so much once again. And thank you to our beautiful audience who have stayed with us throughout. Until we come your way again, it's a bye from the entire Generation Next team. Cheers.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.